Welcome to Vintage Variety. It's been a while since I've done a full jewelry restoration video. I have my workbox out. As usual, I have quite a few projects in here. I have some more modern pieces that I plan to repurpose and some vintage pieces that I plan to make minor repairs to. But what I really want to work on today is this beautiful piece of a necklace. I found this necklace piece online. This is the Art Deco period. It was listed as being for parts or repair. I thought it was absolutely stunning. It has marcasites, a center glass cabochon, all of this set into a silver tone stamping. Of course, this piece of jewelry is quite dirty. It needs a good cleaning, and it's also going to need a chain so that it can be made wearable once again. I wanted to lay this out so we can have a closer look at it together, and I'll tell you some of my ideas for creating a new chain. The great thing about this necklace pendant is that it still has two of the parts attached on each side. There's bow tie stampings along with black glass connectors. These pieces would have originally attached to the necklace chain. I could probably just connect a new chain to this on each side and be done with it, but I believe that it needs a little bit more than just a plain chain on it. I have a couple of ideas for creating a new chain. I think incorporating something like these beads would look really great. This is a vintage glass bead necklace. I'm not going to use this necklace, but I do have some loose beads that came off of a broken one that I can incorporate. I also have a very old spring ring clasp. In fact, I have a few that I can add to the chain of this necklace. I always like to save loose parts, especially if they're vintage, because you never know when they're going to come in handy for repairing a piece of jewelry. I'm going to start off by taking a few of the loose glass beads I have, and I'm going to turn them into beads that can be connected. I'm going to use 20 gauge jewelry wire. You can get this type of wire at any place that sells jewelry supplies. Many of you guys already know how to do this, but for those of you that don't, I'm going to show you the process. I've simply put the wire through the bead. Then I'm going to take my round nose pliers. I'm going to grasp the wire on the end, and I'm going to give it a tight twist, just like so. I usually start by bending the wire, and then I'll move my pliers and roll it over. You can see it's already formed somewhat of a loop. Now I'm just going to go in and I'm going to tighten that up. And there we have a loop on one end of the wire. For the other end of the bead, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push the bead up close to the loop. I usually just eyeball this when I make my cut. You can measure, but I've done this so many times, I'm pretty accurate when I cut the wire. Now that my wire's cut, I'm going to grasp this and I'm going to take my jewelry pliers once again, and I'm going to do the same thing on this end. I'm going to make another loop. And there we have it. I usually like to go back in with some flat nose jewelry pliers and just tighten everything up. Make sure that the loops are nice, neat, and secure. My first idea for replacing the missing chain on this necklace piece is to make a beaded chain. The way I would do that is I would take these loose beads, put the wire through them, and then I would connect them all together. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I have 2 of these beads that I've already prepped with the wire. I would just open those loops up, hook them together, and close them back. I would continue doing that until I had enough beads for each side of the chain of this necklace. I don't really think this would look too bad, but I really don't think this is what I want to do. First of all, with an old piece of jewelry like this, don't really know what it would have originally looked like. You're kind of taking creative liberties, but I don't feel like a beaded chain would have really fit in with this piece of necklace. So I also had a second idea of using pieces of chain and then hooking some pieces of bead to them. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I have this scrap chain. I think it would have been a smaller piece of chain. I can cut pieces of this chain and take these beads and put between the pieces. I think that that is going to be a really good idea, so that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this really fine chain, I'm going to lay it out, and I'm going to try to eyeball and figure out how long I want the pieces to be. Usually I would take this kind of chain apart at the links, but this one is so fine and delicate, I think I'm just going to measure out my pieces and use wire cutters to cut them. Hopefully this isn't going to be too fine of a chain and too tedious. If it is, I'll just switch it up for maybe a size bigger. I have a feeling this is going to be a very long process. I'm going to have to cut quite a few small pieces of chain to make a new chain for this necklace piece. I'm going to start getting the chain laid out and cutting pieces. I will speed the video up a little bit so the content won't be too boring, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I'm going to assemble this chain. After what seems like hours of work, I finally have all of my pieces of chain cut. There were a couple of pieces that I cut a little bit too short, so I'm not going to be able to use those, but I'm going to hold on to them because you never know when you're going to need a small piece of chain for a project. One thing that I did notice about this necklace that I didn't notice in the beginning is that there are a couple of tiny links of chain left on this connector from the original necklace chain. So I feel like my instinct of going with a finer chain was spot on. We'll see how this is all going to come together. First, I'm going to connect a piece of chain. I'm going to add a bead to it, and we'll see if that's going to look the way I want it to look. I'm just going to get my pliers and I'm going to open up this connector on the end. And I'm going to slip a piece of chain into the connector and get that closed up. Just as I imagined, this chain is so fine and delicate that this is such a tedious process. What I may do is go back into my stash of chain and get one that's maybe a size bigger. I think that's probably going to make this process easier. But regardless, I'm going to go ahead and attach everything so you guys can get an idea of how this new chain's going to look. So I finally have my chain on here. I'm going to close this loop up, make sure that it's secure. So that looks pretty good. I may or may not be able to use this chain. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a bead. The bead that I add on the end of this is going to work like a connector to connect another piece of chain. So this is how it's going to look. I still have a long ways to go to get this chain completed, but I feel like this is going to look perfect for this necklace. The black connector beads are going to match in well with the center glass stone, and the smaller square glass connectors. So I'm going to start getting all of this put together. I am going to speed the video up again, but when I get ready to put the finishing touch on, which will be the clasp, I'll come back and I'll show you guys. Before I go any further in creating the chain for this, I wanted to show you guys a before and after of this piece once it's been cleaned. I did not record the cleaning process for this piece, mainly because I've done a lot of content in the past showing different methods for cleaning these old pieces of jewelry. If you guys are interested, you can find a link in the description box below to those videos. I had a hunch that cleaning this would make a huge difference, and boy did it. It's almost a completely different color. I'm very pleased with the way that this turned out. It's now all nice and clean. One thing I will tell you guys is that anytime I'm cleaning one of these pieces, I like to mix my solution up in a clear glass container. Often these pieces will have to soak for quite a while, and if they have stones in them, sometimes those stones will fall out. Using a clear glass container ensures that I won't lose them. That's exactly what happened with this piece. The marcasites fell out of it, which was probably a good thing. I wouldn't have wanted to have went to all the trouble to clean and restore this piece just to have someone wear it and lose one of the stones. A lot of you have asked me in the past what kind of jewelry glue I recommend, and hands down I have to say it is GS Hypo Cement. That's the jewelry glue that I've had the most success with, and I feel like that it holds up the best. So now that this piece is all cleaned, I'm going to get busy and continue making the chain for it. We are almost there. My chain is almost complete, and to me this is the most thrilling part of restoring an old piece of jewelry. All I have to do now is add a clasp to this and it'll be ready to wear. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but what I did do is I ended up changing out the chain that I was using for a slightly larger size of chain. I did this because that super fine chain was just too tedious to work with. Here on one end of the chain, I've added a jump ring, and that's what my necklace clasp is going to attach to. On the other end, I decided to also add an extender. This is a homemade extender. It's just a simple piece of chain that I've connected here, and on the end, I've put another jump ring. That way, if anyone wants to wear this necklace at a longer length in the future, they can always extend it out a little. All I have to do now is put on a jump ring. I'm using an old spring ring that I had in my jewelry supplies. This should be a pretty simple process. I've got the jump ring opened up, and I'm just going to hook this piece over it. At least I'm going to try to. Very tedious work here, and my eyesight's not what it once was. So now that I've got that hooked on there, I'm going to take my jewelry pliers and I'm going to get everything closed back up. I'll go back and I'll double check this just to make sure it's nice and secure, because I certainly don't want this necklace chain coming apart. Okay, so now my clasp is on. Everything's looking really good. Just double checking to make sure everything's really nice and secure. I think I'm going to tighten this up a little more and make sure it's nice and straight. So that looks really good. So let's have a look at this. I think this came together perfectly. I think that my choice of chain was a good choice. But you guys can let me know what you think in the comments and if there's anything you would have done differently. Now that this necklace is all finished up, let's have a look at it on the necklace stand. Here's a look at this completely restored necklace on the necklace stand. The necklace stand is a lot smaller than a person's actual neck, so what I did was I gathered it up in the back to give you guys an idea of how it would lay once it's worn. I think that this necklace is going to look best worn around the length of the collarbones, but because it has an extender on it, it could always be taken out and worn a few inches longer. It's now clean. Those loose stones have been securely glued back in, and it has a new chain on it. I think that making a chain like this was the perfect choice. Those black beads that I used as links go perfectly with the overall design of the necklace. I also think this is a great idea if you wanted to make a chain for, let's say, a different type of pendant. Just using a few bits and pieces that you have laying around, you can link those together, use some jewelry wire, and create something completely new. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm very pleased with the results of this. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed today's content, please remember to give me a thumbs up. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share this restoration with me. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. Ring the bell for notifications and you'll be notified anytime I upload new content. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.